This presentation is something that is very appropriate for the 21st century, where we are talking about an environment which is called what we call VUCA, which is volatile, uncertainty, complex, and ambiguous, where we either reinvent or we simply disappear. And that's kind of where the world is heading towards, and particularly when it comes to retailers who've gone on to be very, very successful in the past. But if you don't play the game the way it's meant to be played, it is a matter of only time that you will completely disappear. And I'm not suggesting that should be the case. So we take some proactive measures, and these are some of the principles. So looking at the clock or the compass is probably the first thing that's a principle, because when you have higher top talent in your organization, you want to make sure there is a clear vision set by the leader, and that is what is most critical for employees to be aligned to that, and that so that they're not becoming clock watchers, but having a clear direction, and that way you have highly motivated, for top performance players in your team. And most often you will find as a leader, you'll get into this overwhelm factor, and which is very normal to find that, my God, how am I going to cope with this? So you chunk it down. Don't take the entire elephant all at once. You break it down into small pieces, and not the elephant, I suppose, but the analogy I use is you take the whole project and you chunk it down, and then it's about programming your mind. It's about success conditioning. Conditioning yourself for success, so that way that day in and day out you go through the grind, and really about being humble, and it's about putting the power onto your team, because you're only as good as your weakest link, because the team can make you or break you. And the other important aspect is about first things first. Don't make everything urgent, because there's no relevance to everything becoming urgent, because urgent only deal with the important stuff first, and then so that before it becomes urgent. And expect a detour ahead, because you will find that not every project goes to plan, so you need to make sure there is a contingency, and then you expect delays, and then treat the exceptions as exceptions. Very important to know your enemies. Enemies, when I say in the battlefield, you must know what the strategy, the tactics are for the opponent. And having a forensic mindset, really about getting into the detail, because as I say, retail is detail. And it's about leaders making some decisions, because as leaders, you will make some wrong decisions at times, but let's not procrastinate and sit on a decision and not make it. That's even worse. And to focus on above the line and below the line, because a lot of companies are very short-sighted and only focus on below the line, which is about cost cutting, and that leads to employee morale being down, and then that leads to having cultural issues, because culture is 8 times more powerful than strategy. And so focus on above the line companies which are sustainable, long-term basis. It's important to make sure that you have both above the line and below the line focus. And having this continuous improvement, so that we are constantly monitoring how can I improve on what I achieved yesterday, becoming exceptional and avoiding mediocrity. And that's what it's a mindset, mind over matter game, and it's about playing the lean machine game, because supply chain is about efficiencies. It's about getting your operations streamlined so you can take away all the excess fat off, and having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, and having relentless focus, because it's about focus. Sometimes they say it's more to be more focused than having a whole lot of intelligence and not be focused at all. And more importantly, also having the productivity, because busyness does not mean business, and it's not about just saying that I'm working from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever number of hours. It's not the number of hours, it's about the output. So work smarter, not harder. And that's where you need to go through establishing the basics about having efficiencies, then being effective, and then to leverage it, so that you go from having you as a single individual as a leader, but also getting the whole team aligned, and then everyone's aligned both functionally and also strategic level. Do you need a plan B? Maybe you do, but I suppose if you go with a plan B mindset, there's always an escape route. You've actually opened the back door already. But I suppose you need to be having a contingency, of course, like any project. And so it's a calculated risk, and looking at the considered consequences. What happens if, and be like the futurist. Be, important to understand, getting different perspectives and looking at the future as to what happens if, and make sure that there is a sequence. And everything is, take a huge project, you chunk it down and actually do that in a sequence. It's about integration. And I'll just walk you through some of the principles when it comes to having a aligned supply chain and integrated supply chain. First of all, have a supply chain strategy, which a lot of retailers don't have, because supply chain is a mistaken identity, and people think that supply chain is simply logistics or warehousing. It's not. It's the whole end-to-end. It's cash to cash. An alignment with the corporate strategy, clear leadership and support from the top. Because if they don't get the support from the top management, of course there will be misalignment. And make sure that the customer is the focus. Companies which have gone on to having the customer as the focus have gone on to have long-lasting, great results, and a long-lasting, sustainable companies. And focus on the alignment, focus on the priorities, and make sure that the alignment of those priorities is also clear across the board. Plans and dependencies are clearly defined across the board, so that the right hand and the left hand knows what the outcome is. And business outcomes are measured, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. Practical and flexible approach to change is taken. So have plan, act, review cycles in place. Cross-functional decisions are made easy, because you need to have the sales and operations planning in place. So that way, any sort of innovative or innovation comes in, or any initiatives are taken, even the lowest common denominator in the team is aware of that. So communication is very, very important. And then passion and energy is supplied, because without passion and without the energy, as a leader, your role is to motivate your troops and to train your direct reports. That's the key attribute of a leader. And so you'll find that in life, you'll find three types of people: those who let it happen, those who make it happen, and those who wondered what happened. I suppose we all know which one we don't want to be, which is the last one, of course, which is those who wondered what happened. So let's be the leader, let's be on the front foot, and if you go with that approach, it's a case of really taking the bull by the horn and making the change, being proactive, and it's about reinventing ourselves. And not, when I say reinventing, it's not about invention, but about innovation. You capture the idea, capture it, package it, put your own special sauce to it, and you bring innovation that leads to inspiration.